We are going to now move into our panel discussion and question and answers. And I think we've got them separate on our agenda, but I'm going to ask a couple questions of our panelists and start the discussion, but then I'm really going to open up because you have a wealth of knowledge that is up here on this panel, and I want us to be able to at least get most of the questions answered so that you can have information in order to challenge yourself as you move forward. So we are going to get started with our panel. Hold on one second. Oh, thank you. All right, so it is my honor. I'm going to be moderating this portion, and it's my honor to introduce this distinguished panel that we have in front of us. This is a wealth of knowledge of women leaders in our community that are doing some great things, and they can really talk specifically about what role they are playing in the vision of this, or implementing the 7 focus areas, but also how you can learn more about what they're doing and how you can be involved. So first, I'm going to start immediately to my left. I'm going to start with Melanie Huggins. Melanie is the Executive Director of Richland County Library. Under Melanie's leadership, the library received the 2017 National Medal for Museum and Library Science, the nation's highest honor. And when I called her actually to ask her for participation, she was at the White House receiving that honor. Melanie is an expert in the areas of strategic planning, collaborations, leadership development, and library staffing. Since taking over in 2009, Melanie has introduced a new focus for strategic planning that involved all staff, rebranded the library system based on customer feedback, and received more than $6 million in grants. Melanie continues to lead the implementation of a 10-year capital campaign that includes the expansion and renovation of all locations based on changing roles of libraries. And Melanie came to Columbia from St. Paul Public Library, where she served as director. And those of you who, you've probably been seeing all the changes that are happening in our library, and Melanie has a fabulous focus on not just the changing role of libraries, but how they can be more of a resource for the community. And then as a side note, she and Joanna, I'm about to introduce, the three of us, along with a couple other ladies, have been talking about women's empowerment in the Midlands. So she has a passion for getting women involved. So y'all please help me welcome Melanie. So next to Melanie, we have Joanne Turnquist. Joanne is the president and CEO of Central Carolina Community Foundation. Since 2009, Joanne has worked closely with her board of trustees and staff to develop and implement the vision and strategic direction for the foundation. She leads a team dedicated to helping individuals, families, businesses, and nonprofit organizations to establish charitable funds to support causes they care about and make a difference in the Midlands and beyond. Before joining CCCF, Joanne served as Vice President for Institutional Sales at the Clorox Company and Johnson Diversity. She is also a 2013 Raleigh Diversity Leadership Fellow, and she received the South Carolina Chamber of Commerce Excellence in Community Diversity Award in 2014 and the Ingenuity SC Vision Award in 2016. Joanne enjoys cycling, swimming, and reading, and she and her husband Ernie are avid golfers and amateur chefs. They share their home and hearts with 3 dogs and 2 cats.
Now it's 4.
Now 4.
Oh, that's the city, sorry.
So help me welcome Joanne. And guys, if you've not met this dynamic woman, you will be thoroughly impressed with her. We've got Ann Dawson-August. Ann is the interim director, executive director of and CEO of the Comet, our area's transit system. Ann is the first African American to serve in this leadership position. Prior to coming and returning to Columbia, she served as the first African American female CEO for the Birmingham-Jefferson County Transportation Authority, the largest urban transit system in Alabama. You may recall that she served as CEO to the Santee Water Regional Transportation Authority, the second largest urban and rural transit system in South Carolina, and she's retired from the U.S. Army Reserves after 30 years of service. Ann's career spans more than 37 years in various capacities within the transportation industry, from military to public transportation. And she is married to Henry August Jr., and they have 2 children, 5 grandchildren, and her philosophy is, you can't grow if you do not know. Thank you, Ann. Welcome, Ann. Next, we have Anita Floyd. Anita is Senior Vice President for Community Impact of the United Way of the Midlands in Columbia, where she directs United Way's community work in 6 counties. She has more than 25 years of experience in community development, including as a housing development and developer and manager, evaluator, trainer, and grant writer. Previously, she worked in applied research with the Institute for Families and Society at the University of South Carolina and as a housing director for the Women's Shelter in Columbia. Anita has a bachelor's of science in political science from the University of Illinois and a master's degree in international studies from the University of South Carolina. Thank you, Anita. Welcome, Anita. Next, we have Miss Cheryl Hinton Harris. Cheryl is the chairwoman of the board for Richland County School District 1 Board of Commissioners. She was elected in November 2012, and she is a product of Richland 1 Schools and served as a volunteer in the district for more than 12 years. She retired at age 40 after more than 22 years in human resources and labor industries. Following her retirement, she consulted on human resource projects for major universities and businesses across the U.S. She is the founder and CEO of Inspire, a youth mentoring network for Richland County students between the ages of 9 and 21. She is also an entrepreneur owning a wedding consultant and floral design business for more than 20 years. She and her husband, Rob, have 4 children, and Cheryl's philosophy is, if I can help somebody, then my living will not be in vain. Remember that, living the legacy? Thank you, Cheryl. And then next we have Tammy Mainwaring. Tammy is president of ITology. ITology is a nonprofit collaboration of companies, academic institutions, and other organizations dedicated to growing and advancing the information technology workforce. Tammy's career began as a public school teacher in Sherrall. Her next career stop was with the South Carolina Department of Education as Educational Technology Director. Her information technology career positions include the South Carolina Chief Information Office and Blue Cross Blue Shield of South Carolina. Tammy has more than 30 years of IT management and teaching experience. She is an expert in education, change management, project management, and community service. She is committed to educating current and future IT heroes and growing IT talent here in South Carolina. Thank you, Tammy. And then finally, rounding off our panel is City Manager Teresa Wilson. Teresa is focused on taking the city's operations to the next level. She led the team responsible for the rebirth of downtown Columbia, leveraging grant funds to create more than $6.1 million worth of investment. Under her leadership, the first official chief financial officer for the city was hired, which helped yield the 2015 Government Finance Officers Association Award. Additionally, the city's Community Development Department is now on a nationally recognized model organization. Teresa's career includes a position in government and community relations for the University of South Carolina. And then for the city, she served as chief lobbyist and director of governmental affairs, an assistant city manager for community programs, economic development, and government services. And then she was hired as our city manager, making her the youngest city manager and also the first African-American female city manager for the city of Columbia. Teresa is currently engaged to William Reginald Bryce, and she has 1 daughter, Teresa. So you all, this is a distinguished panel. And these ladies have come with a wealth of knowledge. So I'm going to start off the questioning and just ask if I'm going to start with Melanie, and we just go down the panel. But you all have read and heard the city's strategic plan Envision. And so in your individual capacities in the roles that you all have, can you all speak a little bit about that vision and how either your organization or who you're working with is working in partnership with the city to make that vision a reality?
Sure. And now I know why nobody wanted to sit here. The one thing that comes to mind when I see the city's strategic plan, and something that I'm really passionate about, is kind of getting your own house in order, starting with your own organization. So I'm very fortunate that I, am essentially the CEO of a $27 million company with almost 400 employees. That's the way I think about what I do at the library. And it's really lovely that the library can say our mission is about making sure that Richland County and the City of Columbia is economically resilient. But we really need to look at our own employees and make sure that they're earning enough money to be economically resilient, and that they have policies and practice that support, especially women, a work and a life balance that is somewhat sane. And so one of the things that I feel like we all can do is look at the organizations that we're associated with and question, why don't we have paid family leave? Why are our lowest paid workers not making above the federal minimum wage? So when I see the city's strategic plan about economic resiliency and making sure that everybody has a fair shake, I think we first have to start with our own organizations that we lead, or those that we're on the board of or volunteer, and start asking those tough questions.
Thank you, Melanie.
I applaud Melanie. It's difficult to do that oftentimes, and when we're women and we're empowered to do that because we have the great benefit of leading organizations, we do need to do that. At the Community Foundation, our job is to inspire folks to do good together, to build one community. And the City of Columbia's vision will only be accomplished if we all feel connected. So what the Community Foundation does is threefold. One of the things that we do is to help inspire folks to have that shared value of giving back time, talent, treasure. Too often, when we think about people that are benevolent or people that are philanthropists, we have a picture in our mind of Oprah Winfrey or Bill Gates. And in order for us to come together, we have to lift up all of the organizations that support our work, the nonprofits in particular, by working together. So how many of you in here have heard of Midlands Gives? Our Community Foundation is the host of Midlands Gives. And what we do is we empower all of us that by giving as little as $20 on our day of giving, we're helping empower those organizations who in turn are empowering their constituents to come together, which does two things. It makes this place a more welcoming community, which will help us attract and retain talent because it's vibrant. And it provides the underpinning of support so that people can get ahead because nonprofit organizations have the resources in order to do that. So again, doing good together is how we can do the vision.
Hello. Okay, it's on. Okay. Wanted to make sure. One of the things that we're looking at Comet, of course, we had to look within, just like Melanie indicated. But one of the things that we always talk about in one of the philosophies I brought into Comet was the I Care process. I Care stands for integrity, compassion, accountability, respect, responsibility, effectiveness, and efficiency. We have to look at that as each one of us must basically embody that type of program. Because if we take it on, and we will continue to do that with everyone that we come in contact with, and everything that's really of the seven areas of focus involves transportation. How do you maintain, attract, and retain good talent? You have to make sure that you have connectivity for one, and you have to ensure that our routes go where people need to go, where they want to go. Because the biggest thing that we face, and no matter where we go, everybody talks about transportation. You can build all you want, but if people can't get to and access the facilities that you're building, then what we're doing is we're making people captive in their homes. So our biggest quest that we have is to ensure that we build a transit system that will embody what the city of Columbia, as well as the Midlands, are looking at going toward the future. And we have to all work as partners in this process, because no one can do it by themselves. We all work in a collaboration with each other. And as funding comes down, if we work together in a partnership, I'm sure we'll be able to do any and everything that is on that video that we saw. And we will not be 20 years from now saying, I wonder whether we have a transportation system that is viable in Columbia. We will already have that and begin to look at other things that we can do in terms of connectivity. Thank you.
So the mission of United Way of the Midlands is to connect people and resources to improve the quality of life in the Midlands. So I feel like we could have fingerprints kind of across several of these goals that the city has kind of boldly set out and challenging us as a community to reach. Our work really is about giving people that opportunity, those chances, and sometimes second chances to realize their potential. So the way that the mayor opened by quoting this notion that we really need to welcome everybody and give everybody these chances, that's what United Way is about. Our work is focused on the areas of health, so we're very focused on things like dental and vision care. We're focused on education with a special attention to young kids, literacy, K through third grade. We also work with a new initiative where we're trying to support older kids, young adults, 17 to 24, who are struggling a little bit to realize their goals. So these are some of our second chance kids too. So mentoring is something that we also are invested in. And then, of course, financial stability. And among that is serving people who are homeless. So part of what I hope that we can do is marshal our resources. We are very good at getting people engaged. So if you want to really respond to Ms. Devine's challenge about getting engaged, we have lots of ways of doing that. You can get on our website and identify places to do some direct hands-on volunteering, whether it's a done in a day project or whether you want to commit to something like mentoring or tutoring. We also, though, have lots of affinity groups. So if you like to network and you want to work with some particular groups, we have a Young Leader Society, we have Women in Philanthropy, we actually are creating a mature group, Always United, for people who are retired and are ready to give in a different way than a career. So there are lots of opportunities. We hope that you'll look to us and we can support that engagement piece.
If I could just start by simply saying a portion of the motto of Richland County School District 1 that says, we are leaders in transforming lives. And as I look at these goals and these focus areas of the city, the school district here, Capital City School District, that all over the state looks at and models, we have the responsibility of ensuring that by 2036, which is the kindergarten class that's entering our schools next month. So we have the task of ensuring that our students are workforce ready, they're career and college ready. And one thing that I really applaud that we do in Richland 1, we take every path possible for our students to be successful, whether it's going to college, whether it's going into the workforce, whether it's going into the military. As I look at these focal areas, and I thought to myself, I said, you know, I'm glad to be a part of a district that is in sync with the vision of the city of Columbia, that we work very collaboratively together in ensuring that our children have every opportunity to be successful. We've embarked upon a lot of goals and things that we're doing to make sure that what we do in Richland 1 prepare those students, these children, to come in and be ready for these jobs that are going to come out of everything that we are doing, everything that we're talking about today. We launched a mission to ensure that every student in Richland 1 have their own device. Every kid has their own device, because we realize the importance of technology. You have to know it. You have to know it to work at McDonald's. You have to know it. You have to know it to go to college. You have to know it to work in the business sector. You have to know it just to live day to day. Anyone has Time Warner Cable, all of that is technology. And you have to understand what that is. But on a day-to-day basis, the district ensures that our students have opportunities. We establish entrepreneurship programs, apprentice programs, you name it. We recently partnered with some major companies here in the city. We're working on something real big right now with Boeing, SC, because we see the importance of STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, all tying in to the city's vision. And that is what it's about. We're like the work bees of the visions that each of you in this room set. As you tell us what you need and what you desire in the workforce, we go back and we ensure that we instill those characteristics, those traits in our children. That's why we do teach the soft skills. That's why we do have the partnerships with Ingenuity SC that creates Dress for Success Days, teaching children what the workforce is looking for. That when they do get to that point that you all are looking to hire them, they're your ideal candidate. So I enjoy the fact that we have that task before us, because it's nothing more refreshing than transforming the life of a child. Transforming a child from thinking that they can't to that you can. And then seeing a city such as the city of Columbia that is thriving, that when you make it, you've got the door of opportunity flung wide open for you right here. Because what we see oftentimes is a lot of our students pack up and go to other major cities. And we're working as a district to stop that. We educate you here. Why not live here? Why not give back to the community that gave you the opportunities that you have? So I applaud what the city is doing, and I appreciate the opportunity to work collaboratively with them in ensuring that our students here in the capital city schools have every opportunity to be successful educationally.
Good morning, everyone. And you just took everything I wanted to say, but that's great. That's good networking, that we are on the same page, except ITology is specific to IT and technology. So first, I'd like to commend Tamika and the City Council for a visionary strategic plan. ITology is very excited and very supportive of the plan. And in the vision, the things that stuck out to me were enabling citizens to pursue the American dream, and also believing and being proud of human potential. Well, that's exactly what we do at ITology. We believe in the potential of everyone, and we want to show make awareness a big possibility, to tell people what opportunities are out there in IT and how it can change your life. It changed my life. The mission at ITology, we work with K through second grade, middle school, elementary school, high school, postgraduates, college students, and IT professionals. So we go full circle with the technology. And we found that that's very important, especially with girls, because lots of times by the time they reach middle school, it's all pop culture. There's a T-shirt at Forever 21 that says allergic to algebra. So that's what we're fighting. And the stereotype of a IT person being a geek or a nerd, you've seen the television shows. So that's what we try to combat and make the preschool and young kids experience very exciting, so they want to continue and not only consume technology, but be builders of solutions and create and innovate and develop. So we're interested in getting more South Carolina citizens in Columbia into the IT talent pipeline, and that falls into so many of the focus areas. Just very quickly, I was looking at the focus areas, and Tamika encouraged me to do this earlier, and ITology really supports all of these in the form of what we do with the IT profession and career development. Planning together as far as IT, we're doing, about to complete a workforce development survey that talks about the skills that our businesses need, and just as was said, it's every industry, not just IT, what we're graduating and where are the gaps. And I'll tell you, women in technology is a huge gap, and they want women in technology. And then the community services and enhancing the community and the neighborhoods, we go all over Columbia to libraries, to parks and recs. We provide field trips, and these are fun for the kids. They get to play. They get to do the hands-on with the cool technologies. So we participate in that. We also make people aware of the economic prosperity. Did you know that the average salary of an IT professional is about $70,000 here in Columbia, and the other occupations about $40,000? So that's how much an IT career, which is very attainable for everyone, can do for the prosperity of not only you as a citizen, but for our state and our city. The meat of what we do is attract and retain IT talent. We believe that our talent should be homegrown, organic. Our students should graduate, be able to live here, stay here, work, live, and play here. So we want South Carolina to have businesses and jobs, and we want to have the talent pool to fill those. Empowering our residents, I know we have and would love to have any of you come. WISE, which is Women in Information, Science, Technology, and Engineering. This is a great group where we talk about women in the workplace, in particular IT. We've had some great events at ITology. One of the best was when we had a speaker that talked about women don't give away your power. And she talked about subconscious ways that we as women, and I do it as well, give away our power. And that was very impactful for the audience. So empowering our residents, we're about to start an SC Codes program that allow people to test their interest and go into coding if they would like to. We also have programs for girls where they can get into technology. And then leading the way in innovative and high-quality municipal services. And I know you think, well, how in the world does ITology have anything to do with that? Well, as I said before, we're training the kids to problem solve, to use technology to solve problems. We are having an innovation challenge at the State Fair where the students will be given a community issue and they will use any type of technology to solve that issue. And I promise you, kids are phenomenal. And we'll be at the State Fair on Saturday morning to display the winners. So ITology is in this 100%.
So my job is to make sure that the vision statement is moved forward as the mayor and council have directed. And I guess I can be pretty brief because I live and breathe it every day. Know all the 7 focus areas and the 5 goals, but it's very incumbent upon me that I make sure that every single one of our employees, not just our department heads, not just some of the ladies you've met in the room today who work for the City of Columbia, but every single one of our employees ultimately understand the direction that our city is going. And if I were to stop and ask them, you know, just one of our solid waste employees working every day, how does what you do move our city forward, to have them feel engaged and connected to what we're doing here at the city? So 2,300 employees, getting that mentality, that thought process embedded throughout the organization takes a lot of work. And I think doing things like we're doing today and continuing to do those type things internally in the city are so important. So I have lots of ladies here today who help me do that. Everything that we do is connected back to a 2-year work plan that was specifically developed around this visioning process. department heads know that when they ask for certain resources to do certain things, that Missy Kaufman, that our budget and program management director, is going to be asking specific questions of them about, okay, that's great. How does it move the vision forward? Where is it in our work plan? And I just thought, Missy, that as you and I met yesterday along with our CFO, I got to ask you and Jeff those questions too, because we were having a pretty high-level discussion yesterday about some major fiscal decisions that we have to make, and we need to attach every one of those projects to where it falls, and all of them do fall within the visioning process. So my commitment to you all as citizens of Columbia is that this staff is helping our mayor and council move the process forward, and it helps me by them having given me direction that they can hold me accountable to.
Thank you. So I have a few questions, but what I would like you all to do, y'all should have some cards on your tables. And so if you have a question for the panel as a whole or one particular person, if you would write down your question, also write your name so we can recognize you. And then if you just hold it up, we've got some PR staff in the room and they'll grab it and make sure that I ask those questions. But let me get started, start where we left off and ask Ms. Wilson. So, as someone new to Columbia, or maybe even someone who's lived here for a while, but this is their first time kind of reading the vision statement, the 7 focus areas, and the goals, they might feel like, wow, this is pretty lofty. And so when you look at the desired state in 2036, as far as the city staff, from the city manager's office through all employees, how are they working to implement or do things today that will get us to that desired state then, and how can citizens be part of that?
Well, I probably just touched upon it. I think we've been working on the visioning process, and I'm very proud of the process. I think the mayor during our last budget approval, right before the budget was approved, said he's probably even more proud of the process we've gone through to get to this point as the product. And I agree with that. I think what we have to do, or what I have to do along with staff, is to make sure that we live it and breathe it. It's fluid. And we know we have to be nimble and quick sometimes. Things come up, and there are projects or initiatives that council will want to implement. But for the most part, I think I've got to be trained, and I'm pretty trained at that, to go back and say, okay, council, this is what you said you want to do, but now you're saying you want to do this, so how do we still be solutions-oriented and make it happen, but we need to stick to our plan. I've got to make sure that our staff is also trained to think that way as well. And when we have, we're a service organization, so we're about service delivery for communities, and making sure, as Ms. Devine talked about earlier, from some stormwater issues, the flooding that's occurred, to affordable housing, and making sure that we have financial literacy programs in place. There's such a wide array of things that a city does, but we have to also know our role and know our place and be able to segue in a way that we know who our partners are, all these ladies that are sitting on this panel with me, so that we can redirect citizens at times. We can still be solutions-oriented, but help citizens point them in the right direction, I guess, as to the resources, and there are many in our community. So making sure that not only upper management, executive management performs as that high-performing organization, the model that we follow, but that our employees know that and know how to redirect citizens to the resources that they need.
Thank you. So speaking of partners, and I've got a question for, I guess, a couple of you. Well, all of you, really, because you're all partners. But I want to ask Ms. Floyd, so when we think about the United Way and the role that the United Way plays in the community, you mentioned that the ladies here can go to the website and find ways to volunteer that fits their schedule, whether it's a done in the day or a long-term commitment. one of the things that I've been very impressed with the United Way in is bringing an awareness to situations that may be outside of everybody's everyday lives. And you and I have had this conversation. I think the face of homelessness in this community is really not the reality of what the homeless population is in this community, and most people don't realize that. The poverty level in this city is probably higher than most people in this room would imagine. And so, can you tell us what is the United Way's role at elevating these discussions in the community, and then how can these ladies be a part of that discussion so that they can be part of the solutions?
I think, so we do try to do that, and one of the things that we do is try to be focused in our work. So we don't try to raise people's awareness about absolutely everything that could really be addressed in the community. We decide where we're going to try to provide leadership, and for us, leadership really is about convening people. We don't pretend to have the answers for all these things, but we do want to hear from people, and we bring people together, and we have strong partnerships with everyone here at this table too. So we do bring people together to try to figure out how to solve those problems. A couple things I want to touch on with the leadership and the volunteering. I think that if you go to the website, and it's a good way to kind of browse, and you could figure out, this is a good way to kind of experiment with what you want to lead with, what you want to have your focus. You can go and visit these agencies. You can spend just serving lunch at Transitions one day, see how it is there, if you're comfortable there. If you want to try tutoring, you can try all these things and see where you're going to actually commit to your work. But the other way that I think we succeed in the community with raising awareness is that while we have a staff of 50 people, we actually depend on leaders like you to work with us in leadership roles. So there are over 300 volunteers who actually help guide the United Way. So that is a much deeper engagement and a kind of a first-hand look and a way to really influence the way that we are addressing problems in the community too. And then of course we've got 68 partner agencies. So it's kind of a broad scope. If we can get all of those people speaking on some common pages, that's partly the way that we raise awareness about this. And we do try to be accountable too. So we, as you all know, we're partnered very closely with the city and other agencies on trying to address homelessness. And when we are struggling, we let you know. I'm happy to tell you that by at least one measure, we've reduced homelessness in the community by 40%. So yes, and that's really a lot because of the partnership with folks like Transitions and certainly with the city. So we do want to keep you aware of what we're doing and where things are succeeding and where they're not. And so accountability is part of raising the awareness too.
Right. So, Chairwoman Harris, I'm going to come to you on this because as we talk about homeless, one of the things that always surprises me is when we hear about the number of homeless children that are in our school system, and a lot of people want to look at test scores and other things and blame somebody else as to why children aren't succeeding. But we know that if a child is living in a car or living on someone's couch, it's hard for them to go to school every day and learn. So I know we as a city are aware of the issue. I think a lot of citizens aren't necessarily aware of the issue, but thinking about our desired state, particularly empowering our residents to succeed, how do you see the community embracing and supporting y'all's efforts as far as making sure that children have the right resources necessary to come to school ready and able to learn? And what is the school district doing to support these families, and how can we help?
Thank you, Tamika. I get a little emotional sometimes when we talk about homelessness and my kids. I consider the children of Richland 1 my children. I take it very personal. Of the 24,000 plus students that we serve, at our last count, we have about 1,800 children that are homeless in Richland 1 alone. For those of you that don't know, Richland 1 is a very unique district. It's the only urban, suburban, and rural school district in this entire state. And we deal with different levels and forms of poverty. Poverty is not always financial in Richland 1. In speaking to that homeless issue, you know, we have McKinney-Vento that allows our students to stay at their home schools, which those numbers are growing. When we're looking at the amount of money that we're spending in cab services just to ensure that our children have some normalcy. You know, you may be homeless, but we want to keep you at your home school. It's nearing $1 million a school year for us in just transportation. But that's an everyday occurrence that we deal with. Another thing that the district deals with, speaking with homeless, when you're homeless, you also don't have food. So we're very fortunate in Richland 1 that we have acquired a federal grant that no child in Richland 1 pays for breakfast nor lunch. Where some did not like the idea or the concept, we have to make those hard decisions and be bold about it, because we realize that where our child or our children may have food that night, we have students that come to school hungry every day. I know we all remember the flood that we just recently had, that historic flood. If you recall, our district was the district in the state that was out the longest. I was getting calls from Senate and everybody else, Harris, when are y'all gonna bring the kids back to school? It's not that easy. It's not that easy. I've got kids that have been traumatized. They're in hotels. Few lost parents in that flood. You remember that inner city around Lake Catherine? Those are my kids. We are still recovering from that flood. Even though it may look like we're okay, we're still recovering from that flood. And there's so many things we have to do with that. Even when it rains on a regular day at school, we have children that are traumatized, that when it starts raining, they're freaking out. This is the everyday occurrence that we face as a school system. So when we talk about help and support in helping with those things, we have to be very innovative as a city and as a system. How do we help address the homelessness in the city? Because at the end of the day, there's no child that asks to come into this world. That's a decision made by a man and a woman most times. But so often they receive the brunt and the impact and the harm from those decisions. I have bus routes that go to hotels here in the city to pick up my kids. Full buses in portions of the city because they're homeless. And it's cheaper for those families to stay in local hotels than to go and purchase a home. That's my reality every day. What I ask of you is whatever form or fashion that you may serve in the city, whatever you can do to ensure that there are rental properties available, supporting the schools and making sure that these children that we serve that are homeless a lot of times have to stay after school. They don't have transportation to get home. There's so many things that we can tap into as a city to make sure that these kids get that extra support that they need. But in spite of all of that, sometimes they just want to know you care. Sometimes your face at school makes a difference. Sometimes these homeless children can't go on the field trip because they can't afford the field trip. And a lot of times my colleagues and I, we help to fund this stuff for our kids, personally speaking, because if we don't do it, it's not going to happen. So we have children that feel less than other children because at the end of the day, Johnny can go on the trip because mom and dad has paid their way. But I can't go because we stay with grandma. And we're sleeping on the floor because mom's there and then mom's sister's there with her children. It's still homeless. Doesn't matter that you're staying with a relative. It's still considered homelessness. So there are so many things that you can do to help us with our students. We are very thankful for our faith-based partnerships. They go above and beyond. We have kids that go home on the weekend with food packages donated by churches. There are churches that have just taken this on as their project, that go to some of our local schools right here in the city with sometimes 150 to 200 bags of food for our children to be able to eat. If you remember the flood, our biggest concern was opening up AC Flora, Dreer, St. Andrews, and Lower Richland. And our biggest concern was getting our employees there at whatever cost necessary, especially our cafeteria workers, because the first thing my colleagues and I said is that our children are not eating. We had areas that were blocked off that we couldn't get to because of the flood, that Fort Jackson and others were helping to fly food in. These were the things that didn't make the media. And I'm grateful to the Board of Commissioners, because I recall all of us out there. I know, Ms. Devine, you may remember that evening when we had a young man. It was his birthday, the day after the flood. And City Councilwoman Devine and her husband, Commissioner Devine, went to a local grocery store to bring a birthday cake back so we could celebrate his birthday. They stayed in a shelter after that flood for quite some time. The house was destroyed. But it's an everyday occurrence for us here. Yes, we have a very large budget. We have about $291 million. Fourth largest employer in the Midlands. But we face challenges every day that those millions of dollars don't always speak to. Mentorship goes a long ways in Richland 1. And how do I know? Because I see it. I see City Councilwoman Devine and Teresa and others, and many of you sitting up here, Melanie, that are in our schools with that smile. Sometimes they just want to know you care. They just want to know that, you know what, even though you're going through a tough time now, it's not going to always be like this. So I would say an immediate fix is sometimes building up their self-esteem, because it's sometimes very low. It's very low. And you can't teach a child that's dealing with all of this stuff. They're traumatized. They don't know how to process this. So I would say, right off the cuff, mentoring. Get involved in our schools. We have 50 schools in this district, and there isn't no school that you won't be able to walk in, tell that principal, hey, I want to be a lunch buddy. I want to come and do the Read All Around the City Day that City Councilwoman Devine does for us, which is a very big deal. Get involved in the schools. We can't do it alone. We are only one part of the puzzle. You're the other part that's missing. We need that. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. So, Ms. Turnquist, I'm going to turn to you, because I think a lot of people say, you know, I've got a lot going on, and yes, we can give of our time, which we encourage everybody to do on getting involved as well. But when we think about services that are needed in our community, volunteering is great, but a lot of them need financial resources. And you mentioned most people think about philanthropy, the Bill Gates and Oprah Winfrey's, and I'm not sure, but I don't think we have any Oprah Winfrey's in this community right now, or in this room right now. But we've got a lot of depth, and people have the ability to do what they can. And so what if I'm a woman here, and I've talked to a couple of them who have ideas. I know Ms. Simmons, Chandel over here, has a camp she's doing this summer for kids, and I know Cara does a lot with young professionals, and there's many women in here who do stuff. So say I have an idea, but I don't have the resources, or I want to help, but I personally don't feel like I have the financial depth to fund a project. How can they still affect change in that way? Yes, Joanne.
Okay, got it. So the Community Foundation, there are about 700 of us in the country. We're all independent. We all were started by local folks who wanted to make a difference in the community. We work with over 400 fund holders that have their charitable monies with us. Last year we invested $16 million of their money into the community. And they do that oftentimes because they have a passion. It might be for education, it might be for the environment, but sometimes they don't know what they don't know. And so it's our job to be the eyes and the ears and to help them understand what opportunities there are in the community and what those opportunities do. So, a few ideas for you. First of all, we do programs where we provide grants into the community. One of those is our Connected Communities grants. We can't, as a community foundation with a limited number of money, we have a lot of collective dollars, again, doing good together, but we have a limited number of dollars that we can direct independently. But those dollars are all going to connecting our communities. Because the more that people feel connected to their community, the more they're apt to volunteer or provide funding to the schools, to technology, to our libraries. So call me or look at our website. My phone number, I'm going to give you all my phone number so I can help you with ideas about grants or learn about your ideas, is 803-254-5601, and my extension is 323. Now, one of the things that we also help folks do is hear about ideas and then come up with collective ideas to raise money together. I know there are a number of women in this room today that are part of giving circles, where you come together and you catch on to an idea, and small amounts of money come together to fund those ideas. We can help facilitate those types of programs, and we can help with ideas about how you can fundraise. We can also connect you with other organizations that might be doing similar work. Because if you can offload some of the things that you're doing to an organization that's doing those well, and take on additional tasks that aren't being done, that's a beautiful sound. That's a beautiful marriage, and we can help you do that. We also work with some of our funders, like Hootie and the Blowfish, who are very specific in doing certain things. So again, there are places to come and ideas to come. We might not have a direct route to funding, but we certainly might have some ideas of how you can seek that funding, because as a funder, we're in a network. You know, funders will talk to funders because we're not asking for something. So we can be your voice in the community to help secure additional ideas so that you can continue to grow. Again, I wish that I could write everybody a check. I really do. I could. They wouldn't go very far. And they might not all get cashed. But we can provide you with an ear, you know, much like the students want to hear. We want to hear. And the other thing I would really like to do is our Connected Community grants come up through the community. We're focused on 3 key things. How can we help our community become more welcoming, regardless of who we are, what we look like, where we come from? Second focus is, how can we have superb public places that we're able to come together? And the last is, how can we have vibrant social offerings that, regardless of who we are, we can come together with others to celebrate the joy of music and art? So again, if you have a group of people that want to talk about what would work in your community, let us know. We want to come in here. We don't prescribe to know what's best for you, but we would like to hear from you. So again, if you have a community, if you have a group, if you have a cohort of folks that have ideas, please call us so that we have a small team. There's 10 of us, but we would love to come out and learn more how we can do good together. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. And just kind of a resource, she talked about giving circles and other things. People might be familiar. There's Women in Philanthropy. So if you want to get involved in that, that is an organization where you can give what you can, and that pooled money gets reinvested back in our community. It helps. And then also next Saturday, actually August, is Black Philanthropy Month. To encourage African Americans to give more. And so there is an African American female giving circle that is starting up here in Columbia. And next Saturday from 9 to, Cara, tell me, 9 to 12?
9 to 12.
9 to 12, there will be an event on Main Street, and I'll post it on my
Yeah.
Facebook page, so
It's at the old, it used to be called Agape on Main Street, but it has now a new conference center.
something Main, Main
Yeah.
is in the name.
It's Maine something. And the woman that is speaking is Mrs. Carson's, and she started Black Philanthropy Month. And her husband runs the largest community foundation in the country, an almost $8 billion foundation. Ours is $130 million, so just in contrast. But she is incredible, and we encourage you, the Community Foundation is supporting this work, and we absolutely recommend that everyone come to hear this incredible woman.
Yeah, so if y'all go to my Facebook page, by this afternoon, I'll make sure I post all the details on that, but that will be a great event to come to. And I want to get to these questions, but there were a couple more I just wanted to hit real quickly. So Melanie, one of the things I've always been very impressed with you and the library is that changing focus of libraries. I know that although I love going to the library and physically checking out a book, you know, there is a lot of changes with technology and other things. And so you and Richland County Public Library has done a lot to really make sure you are taking the resources into the community. So can you briefly just share with the community so that they know what you all are doing? Because there might be some things that y'all are doing that people aren't aware that's happening in our libraries.
I appreciate that. And honestly, there are things happening that I am not aware of because we have such engaged and empowered staff that are really flexible and nimble. Teresa, you talked about that. You know, it's really important that they can see a need, see an opportunity, and act on it. So in one way, the library is doing exactly the same thing as public libraries have been doing for hundreds and hundreds of years. When Andrew Carnegie started investing, philanthropist started investing in the model of a public library, it was because he was a poor child who did not have access to education. And I think somewhere along the way we forgot that that's what public libraries were supposed to be. We kind of became this, and I can talk about it because I'm one of them, right? We kind of became this elitist thing, like this elitist organization, like we only really cared about people who like to read. And so I think some of what we're doing at Richland Library is swinging that pendulum back to where it started. And it's not that we don't still love people like Joanne, who probably has finds out the wazoo right now, because she is a reader. And we like to read. We still like that. We still invest more money in books than anything else. But I feel like in some ways we're getting back to what the mission of public libraries was, and it was to give everyone a chance who wants to make their life better access to those tools. And the tools are so much more than books these days, and it's not just digital or technology. What we know in this age where we're all like this all the time is that we actually like learning from each other. And we are building these buildings that are dynamic learning public spaces. So classrooms, theaters, labs, we have sewing machines and saws at the main library now. We have all kinds of tools. And we have different staff talents to help people get to where they need to be. So while 2 of my 3 kids are products of Richland District 1, or one of them is a product because she graduated, we can't say my 5th grader's yet a product, but he's getting there. I think what we know about learning is that everybody learns in slightly different ways. Like some of you are probably not learning anything from me talking, but if I got up and did an interpretive dance, you'd go, okay, I understand what she's talking about. We all have different modes of learning. And so in some ways, I think what we're trying to do at Richland Library is be sensitive to that. And so that someone comes in and says, you need to show me, I can't just read about it. I need to physically do it with my hands. Can I do it? I need to be connected with a mentor who can talk to me about it. That's really, we're still in the business of learning. It just looks very different now than it used to. And we are very focused. Our strategic plan is on our website, and it really aligns nicely with the city's strategic plan. We are about, one of the things that we are so passionate about is what we refer to as community cohesion. and it's about feeling proud about your individual neighborhood. It's about having a safe place to come have difficult conversations like our Let's Talk About Race series that we had last night. It's about feeling proud of the physical facility. When you drive by your library, you see it and you feel great about it. It's about green space and public space that's outdoor and indoor. So all of those things are really important to us. But I would be remiss if I didn't say one thing that really, I hope, emphasizes the importance of what Ms. Cheryl was talking about the district, is that we are so passionate about, and we feel like an important part of the library's mission is about out-of-school time. Kids spend more time out of school than they spend in school. So when Cheryl says they can't do it alone, she's not kidding. It's that time before they even enter the door, that Birth to Five, which United Way and Central Carolina have helped us fund some amazing initiatives that you probably don't know about because they're not happening in a physical building, like Here Comes Kindergarten, which is our kindergarten readiness program that we started at Gonzalez Gardens and Allen Benedict Courts, and now we do it with Harbison West. And it's really making getting ready for kindergarten a family affair so that kids are going to school ready to read and ready to learn. And it's what happens during the summer. If you have children, you know how stressful summers are, and I'd be the biggest advocate for year-round school right now. Sign me up for that. But it's not just because me as a parent that I want it. It's because kids lose ground over the summer. They lose immense amount of ground. Even with well-meaning and well-resourced opportunities, they still lose ground. And so what do we do during that out-of-school time that gives kids safe places to go? High quality is important. It can't just be, it just has to be high quality education and experiences. It can't just be let me just open the doors and give you air conditioning, although that's nice for some kids. Every kid deserves that camp experience, that high quality out-of-school time experience. So we are doing that in communities. We have an outreach team. We have a Learn Freely bus that goes out and provides access to technology and classes all over the community. We have the Play Freely van, which can pull up at any daycare center and do puppet shows and expose kids to books and reading. So there's a lot of things that don't happen in the building, but we are connected with these partners at the table on. That are really important to me personally as a mom and as a person who lives here, but I think they should be important to all of us, even if you don't have kids. If we don't have a high-functioning school system and high-functioning out-of-school time activities, we don't attract and retain talent. We just don't.
Thank you, Melanie. So along those lines, and let me say one other thing. You can find out more about what they do on the website, because she's right. They have so many things that will really connect with what people are doing. But another one program that I've been really impressed with is, they have social workers on staff, and Lee Patterson is partnered with a diaper bank. And so those of us with small kids that grow out of their diapers, you can donate diapers to the library, and then they will get them to moms in the community who need diapers. And so that's just another opportunity of, another thing that you don't think about, the library providing diapers to people who can't afford diapers. And so that's a great resource.
Can I also mention that we also will take your gently used clothes that are appropriate for business attire. We also have career counselors on staff who are always coaching people with resumes and interviews. We have an event coming up at the North Main Library where we are going to let them shop and get some free clothes for interviews. So if you have gently used items that you want to drop off at any branch, just say this is for your business and career programs, and we'll make sure they get to people who can use them.
So along those lines, though, Tanisha Brown asked, how would any of you, and anybody can tackle this, but I know, Melanie, you mentioned this, I wanted to ask this now, about how do we, in this community, tackle inclusion within our diverse community? That's always, the elephant in the room, and we don't talk about it, but how do we, as the women leaders in this community, tackle inclusion?
Teresa's going to go.
I would say be bold, be bold when you can. If you are in a position to hire, to expose, to just as Ms. Devine started off showcasing Imani, if you're in a position to pull another young female in particular, and oftentimes a female who may look like you, up, do it. you know, we have at the city some great opportunities for young people through the Mayor's Fellows Program, or just if a young person wants to intern at the city in any number of our departments. They don't have to be necessarily graduate level students, but we have a lot of them too going into public policy and public administration. But we have high school students on any given day, or college students who are not necessarily getting paid, but they want to learn and they want to be exposed. Exposure is everything, I think, for a lot of our students. And that leads to other opportunities for them, oftentimes, most times, where it's a paid opportunity, or they're then being included, or they have put their foot in the door. I was just meeting with another powerful woman who here in Columbia yesterday, who has retired and working again at, and you all, a lot of you would know her, and she's in an organization now where I'm so happy she's in the place that she is, because she and I spent, after working through some business, we talked mostly about the change agent that she's trying to be in that organization. And I know for a fact that it would not be happening but for her being there, because she's being purposeful in hiring people and including folks, giving opportunity and exposing some individuals to the environment that has traditionally been, and I'll just say it, you know, white, male-dominated environment. And those are very real. I'm glad someone asked this question. I was hoping someone would, as I know in my own profession, Missy Kaufman and others here in municipal governance know that women are still, I think it's the 10% or 13% rule we talked about. We just have not gotten beyond that percentage where you have a female executive at the table. Most times when I go to my conferences, I'm the only female, particularly only African-American female at the table. And that's okay, because then people get used to it, because quite frankly, all of your issues are the same. It's just that has not become the norm yet. Ms. Divine knows within the last month, in my own conference room at City Hall, at a very high-level negotiation, a man got up and walked away from the table. Now, would he have done that? And I definitely don't believe he would have if I had looked like him. But he did it, and it was one of the most disrespectful things that I have experienced, but I wasn't totally shocked about it. And my staff was like, oh my gosh, Ms. Wilson, he needs to apologize to you. I was like, it is okay, but I'm almost glad y'all saw this dynamic occurring, because it happens every day. And the only way it's gonna change is if there's more of us who make a really purposeful, bold moves to expose others like ourselves as women to opportunities.
Thank you. I have a question for Ms. August, because, I mean, on the lines of inclusion, you know, one of the things that in this community, if people do want to get involved and especially go outside of where they reside or work, in order for them to get out, they have to be connected and have access to quality transportation. And I know when you spoke at council, you talked a lot about your long-range vision regarding connecting this community, specifically in transportation. So can you address that, especially as it relates to inclusion in this community and making sure that everybody has access to opportunities?
One of the things that we are trying to do currently, most of you know about the old buses that have been on the street for a long period of time. We have about 31 new buses that's going to be phased into the system. By I would say around the 15th of September, all of them will be in the system. So that will make the Comet probably one of, I don't know how many, but 80% of our vehicles will be new. And that is usually unheard of in a transit system. The oldest vehicle that we will have will actually be about 6 to 7 years old. And that's remarkable for a transportation system. But I want to thank all of you that voted for that penny back in 2012, because if that did not take place, you would not have those vehicles on the street. 80% of the money comes from the federal government, but that 20% needed to match the monies that we get for those grants. So I just wanted to put that out there and to thank you. Currently, additional funds are coming in more than was anticipated over those 22 years. So at this point, we're looking at about 18 years of funds that we will have for the system. So our goal right now is to look at, what's going to happen in those out years. Once we reach that $390 million that was designated for the transit system, once we meet that goal, then that money stops. So I want you to put that in your heads as well. So we have to build partnerships in order for us to be able to move forward and do some of the things that the system wants to do. Well, on those buses that are out there now, we have USB ports, which is the technology piece, because we have to make sure that we're keeping up with what's going on in society. We have Wi-Fi on those vehicles, which is a plus, so you can still check out the Facebook that the councilwoman is putting out there while you're on the buses as well. So we want you to be able to kind of keep in contact with everyone. Do your little selfies on the bus, too. You can do that as well. But the biggest thing is that we have cameras on all those vehicles, which is a major part for safety, not only for the passengers, for the pedestrians, but also for our operators that are out there until 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night driving those vehicles. Anytime there's an accident, at least now we know, there's 8 cameras on the vehicles from inside, outside, and all around those vehicles. But, on behalf of our board of directors, I just want you to understand that we cannot do anything without the board approving those things that we do. So I encourage you to encourage them to be proactive in a lot of the things that we're trying to do to have the diversity within our system. One of the things that they just approved was the soda cap connector, which is a downtown circulator type system that we're hoping will get individuals out of their cars at lunchtime. So if you even drive in and have to drive into Columbia, that you don't have to move your cars at lunchtime, that you can just walk to the corner a couple of blocks and get on the soda cap connector, go to the Vista or the 5 Points and have lunch, or even down on Main Street or any place in those areas where it's running, and leave your car into the parking lot or, wherever you park your car during the lunchtime period. It's running from 11 until 6, well, actually 11 to 7 now, we changed the hours. But one of the things we had last week, we had a public hearing, and we were excited about the fact that we had a lot of the businesses that came to the public hearing and says, we want the bus to come closer to our area. And so we were excited about that. So we have a couple of changes that we're going to be looking at tomorrow, because our board meeting is tomorrow, to bring to the board to let them see how we're looking at, kind of modifying the route that we initially approved. So that way we can include the business district. And it will run up, currently it'll go make a left on Assembly and go over to Hampton and then come back over to Gervais. But we wanted to include the Main Street district for the businesses in that area. We're asking the businesses to include a little sticker on their windows, and hopefully they will provide, like a percentage off, 5%, 10%, 15%, or whatever, depending on, if they get the little armband that we're going to have. If you get on the soda cap connector, you get a little armband, and that way you can go and present it to the businesses, and maybe they'll give you a percentage off. So we're encouraging that. But long range, I can really see rail in this area. You really need to think about going forward with a rail project eventually, because the biggest thing is trying to you're always going to need buses because you want the connectivity. They always talk about that last mile. So you need to have buses, but, people always say rail is sexy. I spent 39 years in Philadelphia, so we had rail everywhere. Commuter rail, what they call the elevated rail, the subway system and all of that. but you really need a light rail system. I can see it coming from Newberry. I can see it coming from the Northeast into Columbia. I can see it coming from the Eastover area. You know, all these different things, or even Sumter. You know, coming from Charlotte into Columbia. You know, the biggest thing is you want, you know, economic prosperity. And how do you get that? You got to get people to work and training. If people can't get the work and training, then you cannot have economic prosperity. I always say transportation is the key to education and economics. You got to have all of that.
What can we as community leaders do as far as making sure that our organizations are dealing with female and family-friendly work policies to include policies regarding health?
The health portion may be a little bit out of my wheelhouse, although, you know, any employer with the rate of health care increasing the way it is, and the city is no different, I certainly have to deal with factoring in managing and balancing wonderful healthcare opportunities for the 2,300 employees at the city, but also ensuring that the city is balancing the cost of that. But I would say, as far as policies, and on that note, I'm going to have to excuse myself to go get my almost 14-year-old from cheerleading in the middle of the day, to Melanie's point about being at school or not at school in the summer. But always keeping on the table flexible policies for women. It isn't in government. I think we're getting there with some of those policies being more flexible, but I know in private institutions and private entities do have a lot more flexibility than we may have, and whatever your sphere of influence is to encourage that legislatively, I certainly support that. One of the things we do at the city, to the point of being able to volunteer and spend time with your children, is allow for some time for our employees, I think 8 hours each year, to be able to use that time to be away from the city, to go and do things that empower and support children through volunteering at their schools or whatever it might be. So I think there are little things that we all can look at in our respective employment agencies.
Tamika, I would like to add that an IT career for a woman can be very flexible. You can work remotely from home, you can be on the road. So that's one of the things we say to women, is that IT allows flexibility in your career.
I would like to give a shout out right now. One of the things, having led large sales organizations, I was able to affect change and do job sharing and change maternity leave. But it's really, really difficult if you don't work for a company that allows that. We have some large companies in South Carolina in healthcare that don't have maternity leave policies. Companies that have big blue signs in front of their building, and that's crazy. It's just crazy. And there are great companies, but they don't think about women and healthcare. Everyone in this room either has been a working mom or is a working mom or knows working moms or is the grandmother of a daughter that's working. There is an organization in this room called WREN, and it's the Women's Empowerment Network. And the only way that collectively we are going to change things, because we can change things a little at a time. I mean, I changed my little 10-people organization so we have maternity leave and flex time and those types of things. But that's going to take forever if we do littles at a time. So let's put our voices together to talk about changing legislation, and let's have South Carolina come and be one of the first in the country to have policies that are friendly for us. We have, can the WREN ladies raise their hands?
Right here.
So, and there's more WRENs everywhere. But WREN does lobbying group and advocacy group for our voices, regardless of who we are, where we come from, what our backgrounds are. What we need to do is have a collective voice to say, we are working, we are contributing, we are more than 50% of the population here. And if you're not going to help us be flexible and be able to work, we're going to lose that 30-year-old to 40-year-old cohort, because they're not going to be able to afford to get daycare if they can even find daycare that they trust. They're not going to be able to be focused on their work because they're worried about their sick child at home, or who the hell they're going to call when their babysitter's car has a flat tire. So I would encourage all of us, first of all, to take a look at who we're voting for. Take a look at the groups that can give us a collective voice. Doing good together doesn't have to be restricted to supporting financially one another. But let's help one another in this key aspect, because that will help everything. So Ren has a really, really robust website. There are things that we can do. We can be vocal within the organizations that we work with. We can affect policy if we serve on boards, and we should speak to that. Melanie is a perfect example. I had a benefit of serving on her board and seeing that if you have a strong voice, and that voice is persistent enough, you can make change. But let's try to do this together. Women are the only ones that are going to care about this, for the most part, as much as we do. As much as we do.
Just one quick thing to add to that, if you don't mind, is that while I have no shame and no problem in saying a lot of these are women's issues, but I just have to say, if it's good for the gander, it's good for everybody. And I've had more men on my staff come up and thank me for the paid family leave policy than the women. Men that have come up and said, I spent the first 6 months, not worrying about where I got to spend a part of my daughter's babyhood with her, and I would not have done that had we not. So I just think we need to keep that in mind, that while they are women's issues, somebody's going to have to take care of an aging parent at some point. And that could be a man or a woman, and it can be, so it's flex time, it's paid family leave, it is letting people volunteer on work time, and that can be at their kids' school or somewhere else. So I just want to make sure we're focusing on the fact that any of these policies that we change in the name of doing better for women are actually better for everybody.
Yes, thank you. Okay, y'all, we could probably talk about more issues for the next hour or so. And so actually somebody asked me, so when were we doing the next one? I was like, well, I really didn't think about doing another one. But, maybe the fact that we've got so many questions, there's this discussion needs to continue, and whether that is, Alicia's saying no, we're not doing another. But anyway, like I mentioned before, this is only the beginning, and so I hope these conversations can continue. You have these resources, these women, you have our subject matter experts. I know several of them had to leave, but continue the dialogue and get engaged. And so my closing remarks and call to action is just going to be, please, please, please be engaged. Understand that the city is a resource. We can't do everything, but we are a resource to help move the city forward. And I know that with all of our collective sweat equity, we will reach our desired states.